So this is a three-step sort of guide, a rough guide that can hopefully guide you to developing your own individual sense of style. And for many, we don't have that, and it's something we have to actively work to build. And it's challenging because, at least for some, for me especially, it was almost paralyzing. I didn't know what to buy. I didn't know what choices of clothing worked for me. And hopefully, with this framework, you can answer your own questions and then go out there and build your own sense of style that works for you. But first, before that, I want to make sure what I mean by style compared to fashion, because there is a difference. Fashion is it's the fluid sort of trends of the day, and things come into fashion, things fall out of fashion, and frankly, it's a mess. It's there's no rules to it almost, and for that reason, I think the first step to doing this is actually completely scrapping the idea that you need to be following the trends of fashion, and instead actually want to focus on style, which is the sort of opposite end of it. It's the timeless aspects of dressing that have always worked in history and will always work because they work with the intrinsic ways we perceive people. They work with what we as humans view as attractive and pleasant to the eyes, and that will always be the case. Whereas fashion, it's quite a mess, to be honest. But what's the first step? The first step you must consider is your environment, and that includes the social environment and the physical environment, of course. And the social environment is, of course, the setting where you'll be. Maybe you're working, maybe you're, of course, at home. We're not counting that, but maybe you're just going out. Maybe you're going to a formal event. Of course, there's all these different situations that, of course, call for different clothing. But I'm going to be talking about the outfit you'll be having for most things. Your day-to-day job, your daily just casually going out, but you still want to dress in a respectable way. So that's something you want to consider. How formal do you have to be? What is allowed to be worn? What is too far if you push the boundary? And you want to, of course, have that idea of the formality level you want, and you want to respect that. And the other half to that is the physical environment. So that includes the climate you live in, which is the humidity, the temperature, the amount of sun. You maybe want to protect yourself from the sun. And that really is important to know, and it's important to know the fabrics you choose, because you want to be comfortable in your own clothes. You don't want to dress at the cost of your own sanity and your own comfort. You want to dress and be comfortable. And that's taking things into consideration, like maybe you live in a hot climate and maybe you want to prioritize more breathable natural fabrics like linen. This is linen, and it is perfect for the hot weather. It's light and airy, whereas if you're in a cold country with wind, you want something more with more girth to it that can just shelter you from the elements, like a tweed coat, let's say, or wool, which regulates your temperature really well. And all these things, and you want to be aware of plastics. Maybe you don't want plastics, polyesters, and other sort of artificial fabrics. Maybe you don't want to choose them because they keep your sweat in, they block you, they're not permeable, and you want to be aware of all the benefits and disadvantages of each. Because if you do want to be comfortable where you're living in your climate, you're going to have to be aware of them. And of course, most of us live in areas where the weather fluctuates, and ideally we want to have a few outfits for each sort of condition. Maybe some summer outfits or some autumn outfits, some for the winter. Because even just having a few for each is enough, as long as you know really you're picking wisely and you're picking quality items that are suitable for your environment. Now that's the first aspect, and it's quite simple, I think. The second aspect is dressing with regards to your body, because we all have different body shapes and sizes and different levels of muscle, different heights especially. And at least in my opinion, I think we should dress to work around our body, not against it, but to almost emphasize our strong points while taking the attention away from maybe our drawbacks. And I'm not going to go into all the detail of dressing for your exact body size and shape and all that, but one of the main things, which is quite easy to apply actually, is dressing for your height. And now I'll start from the bottom up actually and go down. Let's say you're short, and the opposite is true for tall, but let's say you're short first of all. Obviously you want to kind of emphasize, or rather de-emphasize your height and make yourself appear taller than you are when you actually aren't. And what does that involve? It involves increasing your apparent height, and it involves dressing in such a way that creates an unbroken line that rises vertically up your body. And because if that line is unbroken, and you create that line through patterns, through colors, through the lack of horizontal details, and if you can create that line, then it draws the eye up rather than across, and it doesn't cut through you as much, and that increases your apparent height. And how can you do that? Well, it's quite simple, really. Anything that cuts your body in half, almost like a belt or horizontal stripes or pockets on your shirt or really wide, broad brims for hats, you want to really avoid them, and instead opt for high-rise trousers that make your legs look longer without a break, of course. Maybe suspenders instead of a belt, because they add to that verticality of your body. Perhaps you want to opt for stripes instead. And if you are to wear a hat, which is pretty stylish, you could opt for a tall crown that again increases your height literally that time. And one other tip for dressing if you're short is to wear colours that are the same on the top and bottom halves, because it creates less horizontal breakage, again making the vertical line more apparent and increasing your height, your perceived height almost. So that could be wearing a navy blazer with navy trousers, something that simple. And it really goes a long way if you dress with the details. And of course, if you're really tall and you want to maybe de-emphasize that a bit, it's best to do exactly the opposite of all that advice and cut the unbroken vertical line. You want to cut it into it more. You want to wear horizontal stripes. You want to wear wide brims. You want to emphasize the broadness of your shoulders and wear belts that give you some sort of cutting through that vertical line. And I think that's the main thing you want to focus on. But of course, there's the body shape you might have, which could be, for most people, would be the trapezoid, the typical broad shoulders, and it narrows down to the waist slightly. Whereas some people have a triangle shape where it's that but more emphasized. Others have, I guess you call it pear-shaped, where their shoulders are relatively narrow and their hips are relatively wide. And I'm not going to go into detail of how you would dress for everyone, because it's kind of unnecessary to get into that level of depth and detail in your dress. But the point still stands that you want to really choose items of clothing and outfits that take away the emphasis from your weakness. If maybe one of your body types has a weakness, maybe you want to appear broader or you want to narrow down your waist a bit, then you want to pick choices of clothing that work to do that for you, instead of accentuating them and making them seem worse than they are. And if you can understand that underlying philosophy, then picking clothes should come much more easily. What's the third? The third aspect to creating your individual style is your personality, because ultimately it's your style. Those two are the more practical approaches, but the final one, the third one, involves dressing in a way that gives the message to the world of the right message, the one you want to give. Who are you? Do you want to be perceived as a sort of professor type? Do you want to be perceived as a more outgoing, creative type? And it's really up to you. It's the small details you pick in your style that kind of send that message to the world and change the way people perceive you, because it's important. Our clothes are they're our first line of perception. When we see others across the street, we see their body, their face, and their clothes. And us humans are built to judge. We judge really quickly, and it's important to recognize that and to dress accordingly. Dress as if you're going to be judged, because you will, and you want people to get the right impression of you. And then you can take that further by dressing in such a way that reflects who you are, your character. And I think the best example I can give of that is I had a professor once, and I'm sure you can share this experience, but there's always that professor who really dresses to give that professor image off, the kind of quirky, not crazy, but quirky and outgoing, clever professor, where it's the tweed suits, the war ties, the circular glasses really do justice for that, and all those little details, those little aspects. Maybe it was a coloured socks or something, or something that stands out to really just inject some character into your outfit, the the style which you want to give to the world. And that's something that you really have to figure out for yourself, because it's of course completely individual. It's up to you. And I'm sure if you don't know maybe what you could do to accommodate that, you have to think of how you want to appear. And you can't be too logical about it, because at the end of the day, it's going to be what you're drawn to. Maybe you're drawn to this particular article of clothing that's a bit different or unique to the rest. Maybe it stands out from your outfit. And that's really, if you gravitate towards it, it's a good sign, because it probably reflects your character. So what's some good advice that you can actually use to implement these three steps into creating your own individual style? Well, I'd recommend first assessing what you already have in your wardrobe, because chances are you've got some sort of groundwork as to what you like. Maybe I prefer chinos, for example, over jeans. I don't really wear jeans. That's already a start. That's a start we can build upon. Maybe you are into flannel. Maybe you're flannels. Maybe you're into dress shirts. Maybe you're into jeans. And getting first what you like is a good foundation, because then you can build everything else based upon that. If you really have nothing, you just dress with whatever you have, then I guess you could go to the thrift shops or charity shops and explore the options. Try stuff on, see what works, see what other people's outfits have that you really appreciate and admire. There's an account on Instagram called Letters from the Ruins, really good account. And he has, in one of his story highlights, there was viewers would send in their outfits, and he would review them. And I found that so useful, because you saw what worked, why didn't it work. You saw the best outfits, and that almost gave me a source of inspiration. I saw how, okay, maybe I can do something with that. Maybe that would look good on me. And then I visited charity shops, and everything's cheap there. It's not exactly a big investment. You try stuff on. It's hard to find stuff maybe you really like, but you will eventually. And then you make that investment, even if it's expensive, even if it's new at a retail shop. It might be expensive, but if you wear it, it's a good investment, because that's ultimately how you're presenting yourself towards the world, and that can open up so many opportunities. And yeah, that's really it. It's quite an open framework. There's no like hard rules here, really. And these three steps, dressing for your body, dressing for your environment, and dressing according to your preferences. If you can apply those three rules or frames of reference, let's say, you have a good start to dressing well. And I really implore you to try doing this, and maybe within a few months finding just a few outfits that you can really work with. Just a few, building even just three solid outfits that you can wear every day and be comfortable in, and you feel comfortable in your own clothes and your own skin. That's the sort of challenge I would set for you.